All right, cool. Let's get this show on the road.
Yes.
Mike will hop on. Will hop on as soon as he can.
Sounds good.
Um, all right, everybody. Thanks everybody for coming out. Welcome to the Connecticut TV Fest virtual roundtable, brought to you guys by the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance. My name is Don Quijada, and I'm the president of the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance. And we're here with Donna Collins, executive producer of the Featherweight. Russ McCarroll, founder and CEO of Pocket Square Productions. We're waiting on Mike Furman. He should be pulling up soonly, and he's a three-time Emmy winner and also a board member of the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance. And lastly, Dorian Robinson, who is a documentary filmmaker who's been featured on PBS. And we are also here with Kevin Huffman, who has been helping set up the Connecticut TV Fest. And before we get started, he's gonna have a little conversation with us all about what exactly that's about. Hey, and there we go, Mike, right on time.
Sorry, I'm a little late. I'm on set and we just called lunch and had to run down. So here we are.
You're right on time.
Love
We
it.
Perfect.
technically signed in at 3 on the dot, so we'll let that go. So we did introduce you, Mike, before you got here because I knew you were jumping on. And we just left off with introducing Kevin Huffman, who's going to talk to us about the Connecticut TV Fest that's happening tomorrow in Norwalk, Connecticut. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Don, and for the rest of the panel. Yeah, just real quickly, the weather's going to be beautiful in Norwalk tomorrow. It's going to be a warm 5 degrees, but we're making a really warm presentation. Tomorrow is the Connecticut Television Festival. It's the inaugural festival. The idea that came to me roughly just as I went to an event, an industry mixer in Stamford, and I saw like just a 250 people who work in television. And I really feel strongly that television it just permeates our life. It's the most important part of the media as far as I'm concerned. And that, we should, we're somewhat siloed in Connecticut, I believe, as a result of the COVID and everything else. And I feel like this festival is a good way to bring people together. And the general idea was for folks to nominate their colleagues for a host of individual awards that were designed specifically to call attention to the work that we do in our business. So tomorrow we're having a series of workshops during the day at Space 67 Studios in Norwalk, that's on Wall Street. Launchpad, which you may not know. Well, I should say that the festival is being put together by the Norwalk Film Festival, the Bridgeport Film Festival, and Launchpad. And we have a series of sponsors who are helping out, including the Alliance. The event is tomorrow during the day. We're going to have workshops at Space 67. And then Launchpad, which is a career development organization, is going to have a PA boot camp. I don't think they like to call it a boot camp, but that's going to be tomorrow at Lot 48. That's right across the street. And then in the evening, starting at 6 o'clock, we're going to have an awards program and party. And I think, if anything, our goal is to bring people together and have fun. Um, and as I say, like, don't let don't being perfect be the opposite of good, or I'm sorry, whatever it is, whatever the thing is. We want to just, it's the first time we've done it. We started planning this in September, and it's come up fast, and we're just, having fun. So thank you, and I'll let you guys carry on. So I will be listening. So thank you for doing
Thank,
this.
thanks, Kevin, and thanks for setting up the Connecticut TV Fest. I really appreciate it. I think it's going to be a great time, and I hope to see everybody who's in this stream watching us. I hope I get to see you guys all there tomorrow. Also, before we start hopping into some questions, what we're going to do here, everybody, is I'm going to just ask the panel some general questions about the state of the industry in Connecticut as it is right now, and allow them to answer. And then I might ask some individual questions to each panel member. But at the end, we're going to open it up to questions that you guys may have. So feel free to throw your questions in the Q&A box right now. And by the time that we get there, I can pick a few questions to ask the panel and get you guys some answers. All right, let's just jump into it. We're gonna, so I'm just got some random questions here, and I'm just gonna let you guys take the floor and answer them how you see fit, however you guys want to. Um, let's start with this one. How would you honestly describe the current state of the film and TV industry in Connecticut right now? Not where we want it to be, but where it actually is.
Donna,
It's
do you want
definitely
Donna, do you want to go first as the only woman on the panel?
One word, contracting. So we know it's, we're in a time of change, right? But we've been here before. I mean, the whole history of film and television has been an up and down roller coaster ride. And then with that comes new opportunities. So one quick thing, 30 years of my career spent in broadcasting. So I was there when it was a three network television landscape, period. And now we know that, broadcast, on air broadcasting is definitely being challenged. The addition of digital allowed the affiliates to have digital channels and expand their reach. And now, if you're not on streaming and if you're not sourcing staff to really do some very good streaming, then you're going to fall off. And what we don't want is to lose anybody along the way. You could call it roadkill, if you will. I don't mean to be negative, but we're in a very disruptive time, and I believe that we will weather the storm if we keep our eyes open and we take a look at where those pockets of opportunities might be. It's going to look different than we know now. In particular, broadcast I'm concerned about with the studios and the streamers. I mean, once we get the studios and Warner Brothers and Netflix and they figure it all out, we'll need a new game plan again. So
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is spot on. We've all been here before, radio to TV and
yeah,
everything that's happened since then. So, the industry will figure itself out. I think, it's the same, we're the same place where the music industry was years ago, where, MP3 started happening and, that was going to be the death of the music business. And obviously they pivoted and they found a different way to go forward. I think, one of the things, Don asked was about Connecticut. I think, the good news for Connecticut is you can sort of make a career in our business anywhere now. One of the biggest shows I did in my career was with a production company out of Montana. I'm doing a project right now for with a company out of Austin, Texas. So if you can make a living in those places, you can certainly make a living in the shadows of New York City. So I think there is some optimism about where things are headed here in Connecticut, which is a good
yeah,
thing. I think some of the stuff that the state's done with George Norfleet and some of those guys to bring business to Connecticut has been great. There's never been more companies working out of, specifically Fairfield County as there are now. There's new companies coming here all the time, and they're small, they're mid-size, and as big as, ITV, which is, obviously probably got the most successful nonfiction show on television right now with Love Island. So I think Connecticut's primed to be in a decent place or in a better place. But I do think, to Donna's point, there are very big challenges that the industry is facing right now.
Yeah, and thank you for that ITV shout out. We worked really hard on that show. Um,
I talk to people about that show all the time, Dorian. It's a
yeah.
juggernaut.
Look, my perspective is like interesting because I came fresh out of college into the industry. I started interning at NBC Sports during my junior year, and I just recently started working at ITV America and starting to really see how the industry actually is functioning, how it's unfolding right now. And during the summer last year, I started to see like how a lot of these networks are splitting, and a lot of these companies are consolidating with their employees, being laid off and whatnot. And some of that even happening at my company right now. So with that being said, I think that the industry in the state of Connecticut is in a weird spot right now, considering, we have the rise of AI, which is something that happened at a fast pace throughout my time in college. And that's something that we didn't really know how to tackle when it comes to how are we going to get this show off the ground and pitch this to Netflix um, and really, make a profit off of that. And how do we make a margin off of that? Because we're dumping thousands and sometimes millions of dollars into these projects that are using AI B-roll, but these projects aren't even getting lifted off the ground. So where are we making a margin? Where are we making a profit from? So these are things that need to be taken into consideration and how we really, navigate the industry and how we move forward in the industry. But I think coming from somebody who is still I'm still only 22, right? I've just started working on projects for PBS, right? But even that had some challenges that, to get through because not only am I somebody who is very independent, I also had to work really hard to, make the connections and really go out of my way to not only to hop on a panel like this, but to really, travel all over the state and go to an ESPN or NBC Sports and do all these different things, to build a network of people who are like, hey, I have this original TV show idea. How do I get this to this platform type of situation? So these are things that we're still working on, for people my age group, and we're still trying to navigate as well.
Mhm. Sorry, I'm not a Love Island guy, but thanks for Hell's Kitchen ITV. I'll shout out
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, for a couple seasons of that at Foxwoods, right?
I got a camera right after.
Let's just go back to Donna's original point. The first word she said is contracting. So let's talk about why that's happening. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what I think is the biggest issue, which is the fact that New York and New Jersey see their film and television tax credits going in the opposite direction as the Connecticut tax credit. I consider it lucky to be able to hold on to our 30% max tax credit in the state, but it's not a real 30%. It's a transferable tax credit. New York is a rebate nearly, right? You get your tax rebate, or your tax credit, and then if the tax credit exceeds your tax expenditures, you get that back as a check. So that's all real money. So I love that Connecticut established that tax credit, and it was what helped bring a lot of things here, feature films, television shows, etc. But now we're in a position where it seems like every 2 years we're all up at the Capitol having to petition the legislature to not get rid of it and to petition the governor, excuse me, to not get rid of it. Where right now I live in the Danbury area, I'm right on the New York border. Um, Literally, I could walk to a 40% full 40% tax credit in the Brewster, New York area. And I have been location scouting for some pretty big projects over the last couple years. And now it used to be, well, let's go to Candlewood Lake, let's go to New Milford, Danbury, that whole area. But they have the same architecture, the same greens, the same lakes, and a better tax credit right across the border. And I feel like that is kind of the biggest thing that continues to hinder our industry from growth. And that's television, that's film. I feel like commercials fine because we've got the locations. That's the one thing we do have that no one else has. I'm filming in Old Saybrook right now. I wish it was June because it would be amazing to film here in June. But 7 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds, it's still going to look beautiful, right? So we've got the locations, we've got great crew. We've got great ideas. It's quite easy for us to get from Old Saybrook to Hartford to Danbury and make these smaller company moves because we have these very locations. We have so much working for us. But what we don't have is the business side of things, and it's the film business, it's the television business, it's an industry. It's all going to come down to the bottom line, and the tax credits are, in my opinion, the thing that is forcing this industry to contract when our neighbors only mere hours away are going in the opposite direction. And they have it locked in through 2036, I think, in New York, versus we're again at the Capitol every 2 years. So that's really why I feel the industry is kind of at being choked out. And again, we're such a small state, we can all travel and go work in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Jersey quite easily. So there's my 2 cents on that.
All right, great. Well, seeing a lot of these issues that we're talking about and things that are happening in Connecticut, what do we feel are the types of projects realistically that make sense to bring into Connecticut right now, and which projects might not make so much sense?
I'm just gonna start on this one, only because it's fair because I went last time. It's you mentioned earlier, Russ, about a lot of the digital stuff that's available out there, and believe it or not, it's the first time that I've ever worked on it. But right now, I'm working on a vertical show,
Vertical.
which is soap opera on crack, is what I would kind of
Yeah,
call them.
it's growing,
But
man.
they're not only is it growing, it's booming. These episodes get 250 million views per series, right? And for those who don't know, they're basically feature film length projects, but they're cut into very consumable 2 to 3 minutes. Most of them are about billionaires and debutantes and rescuing the poor girl, like soap opera type stuff, right? But what I said before works for all of them. The locations in Connecticut are literally the most perfect for everything that we're doing, because it's like we right now I've got dueling billionaires over a girl that they both love. Wonderful story, wonderful story. And these billionaires, we're filming at the Madison Beach Hotel, great location there. I'm at a private home in Old Saybrook, and they have a beautiful screening room. Look at this. I'm sitting in a little screening room in a basement. I wish I had this. So that I think is just one example of leveraging more non-traditional uh, uh,
Yeah.
methods of creating media. Obviously, we have to hold on to our networks, our bigger, ESPNs, NBC, and Stanford, WWE. Like we have to hold on to those to keep the industry viable and to create a ton of jobs. But there are a ton of other things like these verticals, commercials, more indies that can help us continue to grow, help filmmakers get jobs, right, in all departments. We have a great crew here. And I think that we just need to continue to be creative and not go the way of Los Angeles, which was getting so siloed into tradition that it continues to kind of implode on itself. And I think Connecticut has a lot of really smart and really creative people that can allow it to expand like that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think, look, the biggest challenge in Connecticut's always the same thing, right? It's knowing who's here and knowing where to find them and doing those kinds of things. That's always been an issue. It continues to be an issue. I mean, I'm sure if we all sat here and started throwing out names, Don would throw out different names than Mike would, different names than Dorian, and different names than I would. And they're all people that work in the business, that work here in the industry. So I think it's getting to know everybody that's in the community. I think that's an issue that remains an issue. I think some people have tried to overcome it, including Danielle Bebo from ITV, who did a lot of work for a couple of years to try to make sure everybody kind of knew each other. But I think it's still a challenge. And I think the other big challenge in the state, that's the same challenge in every part of Connecticut, is there's Fairfield County and then there's the rest of the state, and the two don't talk to each other very well, and they don't communicate very often. And if somebody can figure out how to bridge that gap in any way, I encourage them to do so. I've been here for a long time, and it still remains a tough thing to do. And I think I think it's getting to know it. It's figuring out a mechanism by which to do it. But like, look, there's nothing from a content standpoint that I think is a bad thing to do here in the state. There's studios all over the place from WWE on down that can be used and can be accessed, and they're great. There's, an ability to Mike's point, to shoot scripted stuff here. Anything you can do, I think it can be done here in the state. It's just a matter of, people understanding what the resources are and how to tap into them.
Yeah, I think a great thing about this festival is that like we're starting to bridge that gap. I feel that a lot of times that we do try to reach out to different parts of the state. I currently live in Bridgeport, and that's like a huge part of like who I am and like my art. But a lot of times when I'm like collaborating with whether it's a nonprofit or like a company, and we're trying to reach out to, a company in like, more up north towards Massachusetts, there's a lack of communication. It's because everything's so territorial. They're trying to, worry about like how can they benefit in that area. Like I work in Stanford, and we're trying to figure out how we can get this festival in Stanford, but Kevin and I will go back and forth like, no, like this needs to be in Norwalk because this is the central location. So when we have these conversations about this, we're really thinking about like, okay, what's the best way to bring the most amount of people to the same location, and to bring the most amount of collaboration as possible. And even when I'm working on projects, I'm still like, how do I location scout to make sure like all the correct crew is there as well. So, and to Mike's point about digital, I am seeing that a lot of the times where, with ITV exactly, we are actually pivoting towards digital because the industry is changing at such a rapid pace. Like, Peacock is like the streaming platform that last summer because of Love Island, all these things. But we also got Netflix, we also got Hulu. But we also are, short-term 60-second content that we're consuming on an everyday basis on TikTok and Instagram Reels, that we're also facing as well. So when it comes to young creators like myself, we are more gravitated towards things like that. And I find that I know this is like probably a question that's going to come up later, but I find that when I talk to other creators that are around the same age, they start off with the short form content because that's how they build a portfolio, right? And when I'm trying to hire people for a crew on a film set, whether it be a commercial or it's for a documentary, I actually look towards what they have on their Instagram or what they have on their portfolio website as opposed to where they worked at, because a lot of the times they have the actual skill set to do that. And how do I, I feel that stylistically we can connect on that front. So there's a lot of different avenues we have to go down towards to find a common solution. But I feel that creators like myself and people in this age bracket are in an interesting situation right now.
And also that's what the consumers leaning towards,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
I mean, those audiences are growing, and that tells us a lot as well. I mean, I know that the streaming station, the streamers, are doing series. People are really hungry for series now. They're really consuming series. I think during COVID, we were shut down and we didn't go out, and we got used to, watching it from home. And that certainly has impacted theatrical release. I mean, blockbusters. I'm not working on a blockbuster, but I mean, it's challenging. That's a challenging piece. So I guess 2 points that you make, Dorian, that I think are spot on: regionalism within our own state, and therefore our industry, which thanks to Donn and the association, that's what they're trying to bring together. And then secondly is, what is it that the consumer wants, and how do we fill that gap while still able to create some long form. But again, I think it's about what the marketplace wants and how we can be collaborative, not only within our industry, but within our communities, because at the end of the day, it's the consumer that drives it. I remember when content was king. And now, boy, if you've got distribution, you're home. So I think that there's a lot of things to consider. They're not insurmountable.
Yeah, for sure. And I think going back to the point about short form content that are, easily consumable, is that even for long form content that you watch on a streaming platform, it's changing the way like that's even being made. Like when you watch a Stranger Things, I'm like biting like Ben Affleck's like whole spiel on a podcast, but like when you watch a Stranger Things, they reiterate what's going to happen in the next step of the episode 6 times. It's like because we know people are going to be on their phones consuming that. So even with the way we create art, whether it's like a 30-minute short for PBS or it's for a feature film that you're trying to pitch to an Apple TV Plus or something, even the way we produce content is changing because of these things and because of what the audience wants.
Right.
And to tag along on that, I agree with a lot of the stuff that you guys are saying here. And with this digital media and the short form content that's being able to be created, to me, it feels like it's an opportunity here to give power to the independents, to give power to people to independently create their own content, their own short form, their own digital media, their own short films, feature films, TV shows. I wonder if there's a way to, and we don't have to answer this now, but just to put a thought out there, to create a pipeline for the independent producers or filmmakers or TV showrunners to create something for all of these new companies that have been coming to Connecticut for the past 10 years or so. These TV companies, these production companies that have been coming into Fairfield, if there's a way to create some kind of pipeline where the independent people in Connecticut can submit some of their work to them to see if they can help with distribution, and because there's a need for content, there's a need for a lot of content, and there's a lot of people who are working on that stuff. So I agree with what you guys are saying though. Let's move on to the next one. What do we think would make CT productions faster, smoother, but most importantly more attractive to outside partners?
It's a good question.
That's a
That's a
tough,
good
yeah.
one. Aside from, obviously we know that the tax credit being different would definitely, but if we've been battling for the tax credit for such a long while now, and we've helped maintain it right? But there's got to be other ways to incentivize people to
Yeah,
come
I
out here.
mean, I think it is. I think I mean, obviously, like I mentioned before, the locations, and I mentioned the crew, but I don't think that people who are unfamiliar with Connecticut understand how good the crews are here. How good, I mean, we've got owner operators with 5-ton grip trucks. We've got people who own Aris and Alexas. We've got, not to say that, I was going to say to Dorian's earlier point, you don't need those to actually make good content. You can do it with an iPhone and an LED light. But fact of the matter is, we have a lot of that stuff here, and I just don't think that it's known that we necessarily have it here, right? So people are always so surprised when they do a production here and how good the crews actually wind up being. And they're like, and that goes for independents, for the non-union, but also it's like, I mean, you know how many people from local 600 live in Connecticut and 817, and there's Teamsters here, and DGA, it all the way down from directors, EPs, all the way down to PAs. And I think that being able to tout such a great film base, or I'm sorry, a crew base to prospective production companies and filmmakers is necessary, because I've never had a production here that at the end of it the EPs were like, wow, that Connecticut crew really sucked, we should have gone to New York. And if they knew that, now all of a sudden when they're budgeting, your T&E expenses go all the way down, and that means that it's either lower budgets, or I hate to say it, higher above the line, but both of those things work for different reasons, right? So I think that being able to say, yes, we have amazing camera people, we have grip and electric, outstanding HMU, everything all the way down the line to PAs and drivers is really something that if other people knew about outside of our little niche, that would really start bringing more folks in. Treat us seriously,
Yeah. And also, let's add one more thing, and that is the ease of getting around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Danbury
I
to New
mean,
Haven
it
stinks, but
takes a
everything
whole day
else.
just to set up to a shoot in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Not only
then the cost,
not
the
only
general cost of living here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I just wanted to echo that. Not only ease of getting around, but ease of production. You know how easy it is to shut down a city street in New Haven? I've done it as a location manager. Not only is it easy to work with the city of New Haven, and they're so willing to work with us, but also it's cheap. And we did a film that actually comes out next week, Twisted. Go watch it. It's gonna be on Paramount Plus. Awesome. Watch the credits for the location manager. Really cool guy. But we
Background
shut
casting guy was
down.
pretty cool too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Don, you were there. That was great. So we shut down Chapel Street in New Haven, where those amazing brownstones are in Worcester Square, and we made it. We shot New Haven for Brooklyn, rather than
Yeah.
go to Brooklyn and shoot
Yep.
these brownstones, which is you're shooting 2 pages a day because the logistics are awful, but it also costs you so much. And doing that in Connecticut made it so easy. And that one location was literally the selling point to open the conversation. It was Chair 10 was a production company behind that. And they literally were like, okay, we're coming to work with you guys, put together a great crew. And then John and Lauren did an amazing job putting the whole movie together. But it's just so easy. It's so production friendly, the whole state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Let's go tell
All right.
somebody.
Yeah, that's the
Getting the
next
word
step,
out.
is how, if that's what is going to help incentivize people, then yeah, we have to figure out how to get that word out there more, so people understand that, because I think there is this false narrative out there that there isn't a lot of crew in Connecticut, or a lot of competent crew in Connecticut, and it's the complete opposite.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go with one more question before we start hopping into the individual questions, and maybe take a few Q&As beforehand, because I know Mike has to jump off pretty shortly, and I want him to be a part of that. So let's do this last one. If a Connecticut crew member wants to get hired on a production or a TV show, or what's the correct path? What's the best path for them?
I don't think there's any individual correct path, but I found that having being on Staff Me Up is super effective. I find I'm just gonna reiterate what John from Launchpad, who is helping with this festival, has said is that the gig is the new internship. It's the new, it's the new first step in the door. And I find that once you rack up those gigs and start building out your resume and posting it wherever you can, whether it's like a LinkedIn or an Instagram or TikTok or whatever, people will see that. But it does take an effort to take that next step and be like, hey, like this is what I have to offer. I'd love to be a PA, or I'd love to be a line producer, or I'd love to be a coordinator on your set for this. So for people like within my age bracket, even like people who are more in the industry, I find that they're still applying these traits to what they have to offer because people are always on their phones. People are always trying to reach out to see, hey, like who can I hire for, for my even like my 10-second commercial that I'm trying to put together for Vans or something, So there's always something out there for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Dorian says is right. Look, you got to make the effort. You got to get to the people. A long time ago, it used to be making a lot of phone calls. Now it's reaching out on social media. Now it's reaching out and making sure that people know that you're available, that you want to do it. Again,
Mhm.
I think there's the knowledge issue of not really understanding what the resources are that exist in the state. And whether it's you know ITV or Wheelhouse or any of these bigger production companies that sort of are here, if you talk to the principals and the hiring people at those places, they don't know that there's a lot of people in the state. They don't know most of these companies haven't been here for a long time. So I think it's a matter of just making yourself known and using the stick-to-itiveness that's always been a part of getting that first job, which is, you know, keep calling, keep emailing, keep DMing people. You got to do all of it, and that's the way it happens until like Dorian said, until you have a reputation, until people are calling you instead of you calling them. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, events like this, networking is obviously huge, and I know that's an easy answer. Networking is huge. I spoke at the Bridgeport Film Fest a few months back, right? And people came up to me and just talked to me afterwards, told me what they're all about. Some of them still in college. How do I get into it? Well, I'm here. We're talking. We're meeting.
Mhm.
We'll chat. It's funny that you. This is perfect time because I've literally had like 8 new Instagram followers, and I checked, and they're all watching this stream right now. And like legit, that is a good way to. I'm not opposed to a cold call. Like if you're like, hey. I saw you're doing this thing, and I want to get my foot in the door. Can I even PA? Or I'm interested. Can I shadow? Like I've had people shadow me as their first time on set, and they absolutely love it, and then they meet people. Someone on my current shoot was an intern on the last feature that I did, and I was like, he's Christian's number 9. Thanks for the follow, bud. But what I was saying was, this kid Steve, never been on film set, was an intern, was like, I'm gonna even do it unpaid. I just want to see if I even like doing this. And you know what? I hired him, and he is our key right now on this. So it's just, make yourself available, make yourself known, and keep doing it. And Russ mentioned Facebook, and I always say it, especially at the colleges. I use Facebook for 2 reasons. One, for networking and finding jobs. There are so many great networking and film job groups on Facebook, and a lot of them geared specifically towards Connecticut. Some of them are nationwide, which I wouldn't necessarily start there. But there are so many of those great Facebook groups to get onto. And so don't be afraid of Facebook. It's not just for boomers anymore, right? You can get on there, you can network, use it to your advantage. And I just have to say the second reason I use Facebook is to remind people that the Patriots are back, baby. Let's go.
Drake May.
Let's go.
All right, great. Donna, anything to add to that? Or
No, I think that's good. Good
all right,
ideas.
great. All right, so Mike, 'cause I know you got to hop off in a little bit. We're just gonna ask you one question directly, and then we're gonna jump into a couple Q&As before I go and ask Dorian, Russ, and Donna some questions directly.
Sure.
So Mike, if someone in Connecticut wants to follow a path similar to yours and build consistent work here, what were some specific moves that mattered specifically early on?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. The answer is, see, now you guys are all just following. Like, this is crazy now. It's a great question because so I went to film school down in Savannah College of Art and Design, right? From there, I moved out to LA. This was like 2007. And I moved out there without a job and a very expensive apartment. And I knew how to edit, so I took, some overnight shift editing jobs at a website called GameTrailers.com. I didn't move out to LA to do that. I wanted to work in the movies, but I took an overnight editing job for video game reviews because it was a job, and it helped. It was owned by MTV Networks. That job then opened a door to me doing the same thing at CBS Sports. Overnight highlight reel editing, nonsense. No one knew my name. I'm the only one in the office type stuff, right? Not glamorous at all. Then from there, they were like, hey, there's this new thing coming out called an iPhone. We're going to do some videos for that and see what works. Does anyone want to produce videos? I'm just like, yeah, I want to produce videos. And so I move out there to get into the movies, and I am just doing all digital stuff. And this is very early in the digital age. And they're like, do you want to lead this video app development team? So I find myself developing an app when that was a brand new thing and creating video content, which was a brand new thing. And that product was for March Madness basketball tournament. And creating that product won me an Emmy Award at 22 years old. And that was thank you. Shout out Mason. Say hi, Mason. All right.
What's up, Mason?
Love that guy. Love that guy. And so I never thought that I would be working in apps or a brand new medium or any of that. But 22 years old, won an Emmy Award. And from there, it's just like, that opens up doors. I was open to trying new things that feasibly that could have just completely flopped. And the execs at CBS were like, no one's going to watch a basketball game on a small screen. And sure enough, people were. And it just, it's taking those types of risks where you don't know if it's even going to be viable. And it turned into a career path. And I finally got back from there, I went into television. I was at Comedy Central for a while. I did TV, and then I finally got into feature films late into my 30s. So I finally got where I wanted to be, but like after a successful career in not only television but also digital, that led me up to that point. And now I'm working, mainly in feature films. But let's not be afraid to try something new. I'm doing a vertical soap opera, right? So no opportunity should you ever go, I don't think that's going to work. I'm afraid to do that, or I'm too good to do that. Because I know a lot of people at that CBS Sports office were just like, no, I'm too good to do that. I'd rather wrangle cables at a basketball game on TV. Okay, good for you. And then me and my team of just kids at the time ended up winning an award, and just that opened up more doors. So I think that's the moral of the story is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try anything new. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, man. I mean, I'm probably one of the few people that I believe that are in the industry or on this panel probably that doesn't really have an education in film whatsoever. This kind of fell into my lap 10 years ago. We started off doing we had a modeling agency where we were literally trying to figure out how can we, because we couldn't recruit so many models from all the time. So we had to constantly try to get our models work and work and work and work. But our clients, the brands that we were working with, the photographers that we were working with, they were like, hey, we need something different here. So we started renting out locations every month, like Airbnbs or bowling alleys, just random places, and bringing the same models. And now we're getting people who want to shoot pilots and films and music videos. And then it jumps into, oh, well, while we're giving them a location and the talent, it looks like they need lights. It looks like they need somebody to run the camera. And now we start getting into production services and we start getting into casting. And then before you know it, we're working on feature films. And it was, all because we're willing to put the work in and try different things that lead to different things. You never know.
Mhm.
So don't be scared to get out there for sure. All right, let's take on a couple Q&As before Mike has to hop off. Here's an interesting one. I definitely want to see how you guys feel about this. Does Connecticut have an image problem, an inferiority complex?
Wild question. I'm not gonna lie.
That is a wild
Are you
question.
talking about the television aspect? Because if you're talking about the state in general, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It always has. No. Yeah, I mean, look, Connecticut's in a tough space. It's in between Boston and New York. It's always sort of, been self-deprecating at its best, and so I think that translates to every part of it. But I think I said this at the beginning. I think Connecticut's in a better place now than it was when I got into the business a long time ago. And my first job in television was actually in Connecticut, a long, long time ago when that was really, really hard to do. You've seen there's more networks here, there's more production companies here, there's more of everything here than there was a decade or two ago. So I think it's going in the right direction. I think it's getting better. I mean, look, there's certainly no bigger brand in the entertainment space than WWE. Like they're right here. They they've grown into a behemoth, and the fact that they're now part of Endeavor, the fact that Mark Shapiro lives in this state, who runs Endeavor. I mean, like there's a lot of things going on here that weren't going on here a while ago. So I think it's going in the right direction, but I think there's always a little chip on the shoulder, is the best way to say it.
Also, I would say I don't think being between Boston and New York is a bad thing,
Yeah, no,
you know?
no, not if you look
But
at
I think we got to get our heads set straight. Yeah. And get that message out.
Anybody else? Any thoughts on if we have an inferiority complex?
No, Connecticut rules. I love it. I always tell
Yeah.
people about it.
I
I try to
love
bring
it.
productions here.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, and I don't think people that live and work here necessarily think so either. I think it's just again, it's our problem is a marketing problem. It's
Messaging.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dorian, anything?
I don't know about inferiority complex, but in terms of like an image thing, like me being a director for documentary films, I think that people like outside the state typically see Connecticut as just Greenwich or like upstate, and that's not the case at all. Like I'm born and raised in Bridgeport. I'm sitting in a studio that's in Bridgeport. And it's the complete opposite of Greenwich in like literally every way. But just seeing like how diverse it is and like how culturally significant it is within the context of the state is important. And since it is like a smaller state and it's wedged in between New York and it's kind of close to Jersey and it's like right next to Massachusetts, everybody kind of knows everybody. So that goes back to the point of like, if you work as just like a PA or an intern somewhere, there's more than like if you do outstanding, there's more than likely you're gonna be somebody that recommends you for the next gig. Or if you do, if you don't do that, get the opportunity, you can reach out and be like, hey, like I worked on this project, and I have this on my in my catalog now. Uh, Especially like since it's nice that like we have like a WWE, we have a ITV America, we have a Wheelhouse, we have NBC Sports like all in like the same area, to where you can kind of just get around super fast as well. So I think with more people like coming up that way, it helps the image of the entire state.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ESPN's here, Telemundo's here. I mean, there's a ton, right? It's not just that, but yes, you even mentioned when my wife found out I was from Connecticut. She, oh, it must be a blue blood. I'm like, nah, I'm from Cow, Connecticut. I'm from Cow, Connecticut. And I just laughed before because we're talking about how it's like more than Greenwich, and I look down, I'm just like, oh, there's a prop $100 bill sitting in here, so people are gonna be like, oh, this Connecticut conference, this guy's got a $100 bill that's sitting in his pocket. It's not real. It costs like 50 cents, but it's again, marketing. It's just let people know that we have those cows,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you guys 100%. I don't think there's any kind of inferiority complex where the people who are in the industry, I can understand how somebody outside looking in might feel that way, again, because of the imaging, because of the people, the false narrative that's out there, because people don't really know us well enough. And that's more about getting the message out there and finding a way to really let the industry know that we're here to stay,
Mhm.
and that we can make some moves. All right, let's get into another Q&A before Mike has to hop off. To everyone, is there a project you had in development that eventually died, and were you able to bring it back from the dead? I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't think anything's ever dead, so long as you
Yeah.
continue to
Mhm.
pursue it. Unless it's I mean, yeah, I'm sure there could be some circumstances that something would just completely die, but I don't think anything is ever dead if you're passionate about it. You keep working on it, and I know someone who's been trying to develop something for a decade, and it's a great project, and I'm sure it's going to get made at some point. But yeah, nothing is ever dead unless you let it die. Is kind of what I'd say.
I'm working on a project right now that we developed in 2019, and it sold last year.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's,
Mhm.
I guess, the best way to describe it. It took a little time, but we
Yeah.
got it done, and it'll be on the air in June. So,
It was ahead of its time, Russ.
That's
That's
it.
all. That's
well,
all.
the
That's it.
the pandemic doesn't help. Like
Yeah.
that derailed a lot of things. That
Oh
was
yeah,
just,
that thing.
so
Yeah.
that little thing, so.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
The featherweight took 10 years. And also, it took some muscle from the state of Connecticut because it was scheduled to film in Cleveland.
Hmm.
So, Connecticut, thank you, stepped up competitively, and we pulled it out, and only to bump into COVID and got shut down.
Hmm.
And then when we came back, we shot the film under COVID safety restrictions with masks. We had to find some new money because we were over budget before cameras even started rolling because we had to put in a whole COVID compliance. So I really do think it happens on so many films. I mean, you don't know unless you give up, but if you don't give up, you don't know what it might take, but you'll get there, right? And somebody said passion. I mean, if you hold the passion for the project,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Dorian?
I'm the one outlier here. I haven't made a feature or anything like that yet. All my films require like only a few months because like I've only made shorts up to this point. But the one example that I can possibly like compare to that would be a film I made called Red, White, and Untrue, which is about the Japanese internment camps during World War II and
Mm.
how similar circumstances have happened since then. So getting clearance on archival footage was a pain in the ass. I'll just say that. It was like really hard. It was also really expensive as well.
Yep.
And just getting the right people involved and to be associate producers to seek out like which clips are appropriate for that was hard as well because I initially thought of this idea 2 years ago, but I had to put it on hold because I didn't have the resources available to me yet. Until Brandon and Joseph, my associate producers, helped get that project off the ground to eventually, make it. And, we did what we had to do. There were still a lot of things we had to, work around. Like we would reach out to another college that would interview survivors from that time. And we would have to like tell them like, hey, like we'd love to use this for. I would have to like lie because like it was for platform. It was for PBS. I know Carol's in this call. She knows what project I'm talking about. It was for PBS, but we couldn't like tell them it was gonna be on like a distribution service. Um, until like after be like, hey, like we made the product is gonna be on. But they're okay with it anyway.
Mm.
So but there are a lot of things when it comes to like making documentaries where you have to like find a crevice to like sneak your way through to get some leeway from it. Especially I'm lucky because I'm still like super young, so I can get away with that stuff. But I know years and I'm more seasoned and I have
Keep
like
bragging, brother.
Yeah, I was
Keep
gonna say
bragging. Yeah.
keep bragging about it. It's only so long.
yeah, I
22.
know.
Uh,
It's not
but
You'll
gonna
have grades soon enough, buddy.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I agree with the sentiment that there's nothing truly dead unless you let it die, and sometimes
Mhm.
you have to let something die so that you can move on to something that's more important. But
Yeah.
I don't think that anything dies, and in fact, I've made my bones on films that are about to die and that reach out to me, as a smaller production service company. A lot of the times we get calls last minute for films who might not have been made if it wasn't for us helping out last minute. So if you're ever in a position where you feel like your project might die, just evaluate it and see if it just needs more time, or if it's something that you're just so passionate about that you don't want to let it die, or if it just needs to be put to the side for now until you work on something else. And then later on in life, it ends up working out for you. My production company is actually creating a short that I wrote 12 years ago, that I had no idea that we were ever going to create. And I thought it was dead, until my partners and my executive producers, like, well, what do you have? And I sent that over and they were like, well, this is what we have to make. So
Cool.
just because it didn't happen now doesn't mean it's dead, man.
That's it.
That's all. All right. Let's see. Do one more.
As soon as cast barges in this door, I'm out because this is their room. This is not my dress. So
How would you all encourage networking for someone considering a career change into broadcasting, film, TV, or someone trying to get into acting?
I mean, I think Dorian said it before. You got to put yourself out there. In some instances, you got to do it yourself. Again, you don't need an Alexa Mini to make a short. Everyone's walking around with a 4K camera in their pocket right now. You can get an Osmo gimbal, like 5th generation, for $30 on eBay, used, whatever. Gear is not and should never be the limitation for creating viable content. Look at Trailer Park Boys. That did pretty well. That was like a Sony camcorder, right? Look at how Always Sunny in Philadelphia started off, right? So there's nothing that just go out there and make. There's no limitations. Make your content. Sure, if you're gonna write something that is gonna cost $10 million, don't try to do it. But keep that in your back pocket. That's the project that doesn't have to die. But go out there, make your content, be an artist, and network and meet people. Go to festivals. Go to the Film and TV Alliance, the Connecticut Film and Television Alliance had that mixer at the end of last month. Go do that. Meet other people with similar interests. Become involved. Make yourself known. People will hire you just because you're a cool person to be around. Like, legit, that will happen. I'm an assistant director. Most assistant directors are not personable and likable like this. But I got hired because I'm an assistant director who can get crew to rally behind you. And because they don't want to disappoint their friends, right? I like to kill them with kindness. So, be yourself, go to events, make it yourself. Don't sit back and wait for someone to hire you, because it's just not going to happen unless you take the initiative. And that's going to be my last note, because I'm literally hearing my name from 2 different headsets right now. So I really got to jump.
Mike, we appreciate you. We appreciate you, Mike, for coming out, especially when you're on set. We already know how busy you are, so appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Nice to meet the rest of you. And this is great. Everybody enjoy the festival. All right.
Thanks.
All right. Man. Take care, guys. All right. Bye.
All right. We can pick up if anybody else wanted to respond to that question. So I'll repeat the question so you guys know. It was, how would you all encourage networking for someone considering a career change into broadcasting, film, TV, or someone trying to get into acting?
I think I think we kind of covered it a little bit. I think most of it is just, keep trying, keep pushing, keep looking for things. There's the resources are out there. Whether it's Staff Me Up or other things to sort of find ways in, events like today and tomorrow, or other ways to do that. Like, it all comes down to networking and meeting people, and just making sure that you're, constantly, trying to stay in touch, and trying to, I think one thing I always kind of tell people is, like, look, it's really hard in this day and age when you send an email and you don't get a response. Everybody's like, oh, they're not getting back to me. Well, chances are that person has gotten 300 emails since you sent your email, and they're desperately trying to get back to the bottom of their email box, and they just haven't gotten there. So email again, reach out again, I find that most people are just going to feel really bad that they haven't gotten back to you. They're not going to be angry or upset or anything like that. They're just going to feel bad that they didn't get back to you. And so I think that's easier said than done, but I think that's something that, especially
Yeah.
as young people, you got to remember, most people aren't not getting back to you because they don't want to. They're just simply busy with a million things, whether they're life things or work things.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that since there's so many things out there, like including this festival, this panel that's going on, creator spaces that are happening. I have a few friends that have creator spaces in New Haven and Milford and down in Norwalk and Stanford. But if you're not going to these events, you don't really want it that bad. I'm just gonna be honest. Like if you're not going out of your way to meet new people, to talk to another PA or a line producer or a coordinator or an executive producer or a director, AD, you don't really want it that bad unless you want to be complete independent, which, by all means go ahead. But in this industry, it's very collaborative, and you have to build a network of people you can trust and move forward with. And that could eventually, make it profitable to start up your own production company and go from there. But, I find that when I invite a lot of people that even like above that are older, they just flake because they just don't think they're ready for this. But it's like if you don't want to take that extra step, then you don't really want it that bad.
And I'm not officially a panelist, but I had a quick thought for that. Since I've done PA work in every single department there is, so that's how I got started over 20 years ago. But there's Cricket Smile Agency, there's Staff Me Up, there's places where you can put yourself out as a PA. You don't even have to have experience, and you're getting on those sets, you're meeting people, you're becoming friends. Now they're getting to know who you are and what you do. You're forming those relationships. So I think PA work is a great way to break in.
Yeah, and to touch on that, to touch on what Dorian was saying as well, I get it all the time. I get a lot of messages, emails, inboxes on Instagram and Facebook asking me, how do I break in? How do I get this? How can I meet this person? How can I? And I appreciate it, and I want to help every single one of you. I just don't always have the time. But what I tell everybody who reaches out to me and says stuff like that is, I'm to an event, meet people, network. If you see me promoting an event, and I'm specifically saying that that event is to help people in the industry in any way that we can, and you don't show up, the next time you ask me how, I don't know if I'm going to answer you, man, because I've been putting it in front of you. You guys got to come out. You guys got to meet everybody and network and introduce and show your worth. You know.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
if you're not doing that, you're just throwing it out there into the void so nobody can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Cool. All right. So let's get into some of the individual questions because we didn't get a chance to do that because I was focusing on the Q&As before Mike had left. So we'll start with Donna. Let's see what had pull up the question here. All right. You've produced work rooted in real communities here in Connecticut. What's the biggest challenge in making authentic Connecticut-based stories while still positioning them for a wider audience?
Well, I think it's the subject matter. I think it transcends location. If it's something we were talking earlier about, give them what they want. If it's a compelling story, I think it really begins with a strong script. If you've got a solid script, in the case of the Featherweight, it was a unique opportunity to tell a story about a hometown hero that was also a world champion, still holds the title of the most winning boxer in history. Hartford rallied, as I told you, and as a matter of fact, I do want to just give a shout out to Carol Cisco because when we talk about collaborating and partnerships, Connecticut Public Television became one of our producing partners, and we did a whole thing. We set up our production studios there. So I'm sorry for that sidebar, but I couldn't miss that opportunity, Don.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, it was a unique, but I do think a biopic, again, if the story is compelling, we're all really wanting something that can resonate or take us away. Love Island. So I think, I do think that you can shoot film here and it could be about Connecticut, it could be about Hartford, it could be about anything, and it will transcend. So I don't see that as a real barrier to making films in Connecticut.
And to follow up to that, for you specifically, Donna. What do you think would help Connecticut become a place where more original films are developed and launched?
Well, I think we've said it. I mean, I think collaboration. So first of all, messaging that we're open for business and we've got great, it's a great place to make film with talent. We've got the whole spectrum of top talent here. And then I think it's about collaborating amongst ourselves. The regionalism, we were talking earlier, instead of the silos. I think that could make a huge difference. Again, with the Featherweight, it truly was a community that made that film. Yeah, and connecting the dots, and bringing the community in. Sometimes people feel, well, oh, they're disrupting my drive home or whatever. But I think if you make the community part of the partnership, they feel that they've got a place. Give them a role. We were in every neighborhood. We sourced catering and food service locally in the different neighborhoods that we were shooting in. Again, we brought them in. We met with them. We kind of gave them that friendly little thing. Mike talking about he wants his team to feel like they're his friends. I do think it's about attitude and respect.
Awesome.
I could go on, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, it's all right. Let's go to Dorian. Documentary work often thrives in smaller markets. What advantages does Connecticut offer nonfiction storytellers that we don't talk about enough?
Well, I think it's a little bit of what I said before about how a lot of my work is involved in the idea of Bridgeport and how I've carried that through through my work, whether it's like an actual literal film about me and my grandmother living in the city and how I've navigated that life, or because I'm not like just a documentary filmmaker. I feel like a lot of people like as artists, like we get pigeonholed into something, but
Boxed in, yeah.
boxed in. It's like documentary music, TV producing, like it's a lot of situations, but like I do all of that within the context of like where I'm from. And I think when I'm creating something, like a little bit of like what Donna said is that like we're trying to transcend what we're identified as a state. It's like we're not just Greenwich, we're a very diverse. I think that because whenever I go to Brooklyn like maybe like once a month type now. Bridgeport's like a mini Brooklyn in a lot of ways. How vibrant it is in the art scene. So whenever I'm making a film, you can see that DNA carry out throughout the entire duration.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. Coming up around New Haven, I feel the same similarities that you're talking about, how I resonate with the fact of where I'm from and how I got to where I'm at, and to show that Connecticut is not just Stamford and Greenwich. We have a lot of diversity here. We have a lot of different stories that can be told. So I agree with that. All right, one more for you, Dorian. Let's see. All right, so your work has appeared on major platforms like PBS. For Connecticut storytellers, what partnerships or funding sources are most underused right now?
That's a good one. My very first film was a film that was funded by the Department of Political Science. We got a grant for $15,000 to start that film up.
Nice.
And by the way, this is my very first film. So like when I got sent that pitch, I'm like, I'm like having a mini panic attack. I don't even know how to do this. For context, it was about going to New Hampshire during the presidential primaries during 2024. So we got to interview a lot of the presidential candidates at the time. Um, but a lot of the funding resources are coming from people that you have to know. Like a lot of when I'm trying to start up a film, like I'm trying to start up this docu-series called Born to Ball. And I've started to, gain connections with previous NBA players who can help fund that project because the project basis is about how Nepo babies are in the NBA and how it could be harder than it seems. But like knowing that in mind, knowing what your project is and knowing where to reach out to is really important. But a big thing that we talked about in this entire panel is like where do we go for these, for these resources? Um, but I find that like, who I know is usually able to help, whether it's like for direct funding for money or it be gear, knowledge. I'm trying to adapt the book into a feature film. But I've gotten like the connections to help that make be possible. These are things that like you develop over time that as a filmmaker you have to add to your repertoire. And how do we resonate with the wider audience, and how do we keep it ethical? It's just like um that's always a challenge as a director, documentary or not, because Donna mentioned biopics. We're as documentary filmmakers, we're grounded in realism. I like to ground myself in realism, but try to keep it stylistic. So that's always a challenge, like whether we're keeping it ethical to the product in mind. But we always gotta trust our gut. We always gotta sit down with the people. We always gotta talk to them individually and be like, are you okay with what's going on? And staying true to your artistic integrity.
Absolutely. All right. So now we can move on to Russ. All right. Let's see. So Russ, you've successfully sold and developed content with major networks and now run Pocket Square. What advice do you have for Connecticut creators on packaging projects that can get attention from buyers and platforms?
Mhm.
Look, I think packaging is super important now in this day and age, probably more so than ever. Look, you need something in order to make people sit up and pay attention to your pitches. I think, as people were talking about earlier, there's, more content that's being made than ever before, but there's also more competition than there's ever been
Mhm.
before. And look, having been a buyer on the network side at a previous point in my career, I can tell you right now that, when the stakes get higher on the buyer side, they're going to lean into proven producers more and more often. So, you know, one of probably the partner I did the most business with when I was at History, for example, was Dave George, who now runs ITV. And I did a lot of business with Dave for one very specific reason. I knew there was never a problem that was going to come my way from something that Dave was doing because it was going to get solved long before it ever got to my desk. And so, I was always confident in buying from him. But I think in this day and age, especially for a smaller buyer, or excuse me, especially for a smaller producer, you need something attached. You need IP, you need talent, you need something that's going to make a buyer sit up and pay attention to the idea that you're coming in the door with. If you've got a sort of half-written paper pitch and you're going in and thinking you're going to sell it, that's probably unrealistic in this day and age. Now, there was very much a time when you could sort of, I worked with Mark Burnett earlier in my career, very early in my career, and Mark sold the first show that he ever sold from deal terms that he wrote up on a back of the napkin with Greg Moyer, who was running Discovery at the time, literally on the back of a cocktail napkin. They handed the cocktail napkin to the BA department to say, drop the deal based on this. That doesn't happen anymore. Although I shouldn't say that. Mark could probably still do that. He might be the only person I know that could probably still do that. But I don't think that's realistic for other people anymore. I think you need elements, you need things that are, unassailable. If you walk in the door and you have the rock attached to your project, the chances of it going are exponentially higher than if you don't have him attached. If you have a script or an article or some piece of IP that has already been out there in the public and that people are aware of and knowledgeable about, that's another element um, that you can walk in the door with that I think makes people pay attention. But if you're trying to sell, I think packaging is essential at this point.
Absolutely. I have another question for you, but it looks like Alessandro's got his hand up. So go
Oh,
go ahead, Alessandro.
you
Oh,
might be
All right, there,
muted.
there was a that was Bob Dewitt had a question apparently. I just wanted to. I'll get that to you and I'll pass it along once a
Oh,
moment.
please, yeah, no
sure,
problem.
yeah. Send it over. All right, yeah. So the for us to touch on something that we were talking about earlier, as far as employment in some of these newer companies that have come to Connecticut. We had mentioned that a lot of people got to get their names out there more so that these hiring managers or whoever it may be who is responsible for hiring at these companies would be more familiar with the talent that's in Connecticut. But from your side of the industry, what would make it easier to consistently hire Connecticut-based crew and creatives on the projects that these companies are running?
I think it really comes down to knowledge. I mean, look, I was with Danielle Bevo literally yesterday, and she and I were having a conversation, and ITV's been in the state for a number of years now, and they still are actively trying to figure out what producers, what DPs, what are the resources that exist in the state? Because look, I know that we've had a conversation a couple times about tax credits, but look, tax credits are still meaningful whether they're as good as they are in other states or not. And so the more dollars that you can spend as a company here in the state, the better off you are. So look, there's a motivation on the part of all these companies to spend money in Connecticut because it helps their bottom line as well. So
Mhm.
they are actively trying to do it, and they want to know about people that are around. The Wheelhouse, I think, did a production mixer a few months back where they literally reached out to everybody they could find that was a producer or director in the state, and invited them to get together and sort of meet, and so that they could figure out what talent was here, who could they tap into, what were the PAs and APs and every phase of both production and post production that were around that could. So I think that's they want to know you. They want to know you're here. That's all I can tell you. They're very eager to find people. And so I think it becomes, like Dorian said, incumbent on you to make sure that you're making yourself known and making sure that people know that you're there. And some of these big companies, especially that have websites, have HR contacts, listed right on those websites, that you can figure out who the hiring manager is just by, checking out their sites. So that's another, avenue to certainly go down.
Yeah. Ultimately, for everybody who's listening, if you're looking for work, I think what Russ is saying here is don't be scared to go and look for the work. Reach out to these people that are hiring. Don't expect them to do the footwork to find you. Right? They already got their job. Right? So
Yeah,
if
well, and in many cases, with the way things are working these days, things are happening quicker than they've ever happened before. Green light to shooting is a short pre-production is getting tighter and tighter. And so, in many instances, they're left with a situation where they need to be up and running faster than they have time to go try to, figure out who's the staff that's going to be closest.
exactly.
So I think time is of the essence, as they say.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Let's see if we have any more Q&As here for everybody. Ooh. How essential would you say it is to be in SAG? I'm currently a must join, given the current state of things. That's obviously an actor asking us how
Uh,
important it is to be unionized.
Donna, I'll let you take that one. You have the most experience on that side of things, probably.
Uh,
Um,
Go ahead, Donna.
oh,
If you have,
Don,
oh,
the
it was
question
talking
was
to
for
me?
you? Yeah.
Oh, no, no,
Oh,
I was meaning you, Donna. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
apologize. I didn't.
oh. It doesn't hurt, right? I mean, I don't know how essential it is, but it doesn't hurt. I think it could make a difference. We know that SAG is kind of wobbly. Um, but I would say be part of it. Be part of the industry in any way, in every way that you can.
So as a casting director myself, this is a question that we get asked a lot in Connecticut, specifically because that union is split up into two when it comes to Connecticut.
Right.
You've got, the southern part of the state that belongs to the New York Union, and you have the other part of the state that belongs to the New England Union. And there's a lot of intricacies behind that really make it difficult for productions in Connecticut. Um, Specifically productions that are on the closer to the New York side, because they're very more let's say strict, than the New England one. Um, so I understand the hesitation, and I understand the question. It's really, to me, more of a personal question to yourself, right? Obviously, we don't get a boatload of union work in Connecticut as much as they do in maybe New York. So the real question might be, are you willing to travel for more consistent work if you're on a union? And it's really more of a personal question than anything else. Where have you got the majority of your work? right? And how have you gotten it? And are you ready to change that if necessary? So that's a question to me that's an individual question for
Yeah,
everybody individually rather than, a broad
yeah,
question.
good
All right.
answer.
This is something that we've touched on a couple times today, but it is a question, so I'll throw it out there. Do we think that that Connecticut is overshadowed by New York's TV and film industry?
I mean, New York's been doing it a lot longer, so I think, it's always going to be tough for Connecticut to catch up. It's the same with, when you look at LA, they've been doing it for a long time out there. It's going to be, it takes a long time to catch up to what those guys have been doing for decades and decades. And so I think, yeah, is Connecticut smaller? Yeah. Is it going to catch up? Maybe not in our lifetimes, but we're making progress. We're making progress.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I hear this often, right? And I feel like it's like comparing Michael Jordan and Kobe. It's two different
Mhm.
fields that we're playing in, right? We're not in, it's the same industry, but we're in different ballparks. We're playing different games. I think if the people in Connecticut, if we wanted to get more work here and we can focus on lower budgeted productions, then we wouldn't really necessarily be considered to be in competition with the all of the big stuff that happens in New York and maybe be able to get more work done here. So I don't think that we're overshadowed by New York. I think that, a lot of the time we're so um, consistently trying to compete when there doesn't need to be a competition. We need to create our own lane, in my opinion, and rather than wondering if we're ever going to get out of New York's shadow.
And
Yeah.
quickly,
All
just
right.
Bob had mentioned that he is trying to work on getting some sort of a SAG-AFTRA satellite office in Connecticut because he thinks that would be very
Oh, I
helpful
see that.
for that particular issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to do that for a while, right? Or even convince the union to potentially like have its own branch in Connecticut, because having multiple states bunched into one is kind of, especially with one being cut in half, is problematic in different areas. So, Bob, I appreciate that, and if you need any help, let me know. I'd love to be involved in trying to help create a satellite office here in Connecticut and give more
Yeah.
freedom to the union here in Connecticut.
And if anybody has a question, instead of raising your hand, just just post the question, and if we have time, I'll make sure Don gets it.
Yes, cool. Here's another question. Let's see. As a beginner on filmmaking, if I shot my own vertical, how can I get it to stream out there? Hmm.
That's so funny because like a lot of the conversations I'll have with CEOs and creative directors, they're not even worried about streamers anymore. They're like more they're more keen to actually just throwing it on YouTube. I'm not going to disclose who I talked to about this, but they want to, put their flagship show on YouTube behind a paywall. You don't even really need to put something on a Peacock or a Hulu or Netflix like that because and also like the traditional TV is just like is going towards streaming now too. That's another thing. But
Yeah.
YouTube and Instagram and TikTok are the number one, two, three primary sources of consuming content nowadays. And I feel like you can do it free. You can build a portfolio of a body of work. So eventually, if you start transitioning into longer form content, who knows? Maybe somebody who, a production company reach out to you and be like, "Hey, we want to collaborate with you," and then, how can we provide a service to you and build on this relationship? Because this has happened a lot. Like a lot of production companies are looking towards digital, and we're reaching out to content creators who are, who have a couple million on Instagram or whatever, and we're trying to find a way to transition into that field and still be prominent. So because that's the future. That's the now, that's the future, and that's what's going on. So
And that's the independent lane that I was talking about earlier, right? That you guys can do this on your own. I know budget restraints can make things difficult, but there is a lane out there for being independent, creating your own content, and doing what Dorian is talking about, going on social media, because nowadays, it's not easy, but it's not impossible to get a lot of views on, good content that you can put out on your own. And like Dorian says, you never know who's going to reach out if you do that. If you're vertical, or if you're short, or whatever it is that you're working on does numbers on YouTube, you know, you're gonna get some eyes on you, and you're gonna get some people who are interested in potentially exploring what that could be in different avenues. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. If anybody else has anything to say here, feel free to hop in.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think it depends a little bit on what you're trying to accomplish. I think
Yeah.
that's something to just be mindful of. Like, what are you trying to do with the content that you're working on and that you're trying to create? Because I think you know, it's not easy. I have a very good friend who's built a really substantial social media business that he started in 2018, and it's taken him since 2018 to go from 8,000 followers to 1.5 million followers. That's a pretty dedicated uh,
Yeah.
build process to get from A to B. So I think unless you really um, have the fortitude to stick to it and sort of continue to um, stay at it, I think, you may want to think about the fact that there are other paths, because even though, some of those places, whether it's streaming or whether it's in networks or whatever else, whether they're on their way in whether they're contracting or not, they're going to get you in front of a lot more people a lot more quickly than building from scratch, which I think is the thing that you know people don't realize how long it takes and how much work it is and dedication. And not to try to discourage anybody from doing that, but it's not easy, and not everybody that does it ends up you know finding an audience. And so I think one thing I would just say to everybody is think about what you're trying to do and how you're trying, what you want to achieve out of it. So
Awesome. So I have somebody else here, and I think this is a great question, a little self-promoting, never hurt anybody. Where can they follow everybody on social media? Do people want to know where they can follow you all? If they can follow you all.
everything that I have is just my name. So
Every,
I'm very
simple.
easy. I'm very easy. I'm easy to find. Just Russ. So whether that's LinkedIn or Instagram or anything else, it's all pretty easy. So
Cool.
Thank you for allowing me to self promo. I really appreciate that. It's at Wolf Hill Dorian on Instagram. You can follow me at Dorian Robinson on LinkedIn. Um, if you want to find my portfolio or whatever, you can go to dorian/robinson.com as well. And if you're sticking around the entire weekend, I will be running around in Norwalk at the CTTV Fest at Space 67 and Lot 48 Studios as well. So you can meet me there in person if you want to.
yeah, I'll be there tomorrow as well.
Great.
And so you can find me on LinkedIn, Donna Collins Consulting. I have a very low digital profile by design, but that doesn't mean I don't want to meet people.
Awesome. And for me, you guys can either visit my website, crookedsmileagency.com, or you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Don Quijada. On Instagram, it's actually Crooked Smile Q. So yeah, feel free to follow me, reach out, whatever works. I think we'll probably do one or two more questions and then wrap this up. I don't want to take too much of your guys' time. Not too many questions here. This one. Okay, let's try it. Why isn't the Connecticut Film Commission marketing Connecticut as a production center with professional crews, union actors, and beautiful locations? I mean, I'm not a part of the Connecticut Film Commission.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know that they're not. I don't
Right.
believe that they're not. I think they are. I think rather than maybe placing any kind of blame or assuming that we know how the inner workings of the Connecticut Film Commission operates, we should maybe try to offer ideas on how to do things that we think are necessary. So I don't necessarily agree with the question too much. I understand where it's coming from. But that's how I feel about it. And rather than asking those type of questions, I think we need to more so figure out what kind of solution we want to see, and see if we can get the film office to hear those suggestions. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say to that question.
I agree.
Cool. Let's see if there's any other ones. Uh, mm, I don't think there's any other questions. There's a couple of statements here. I don't know. Can you guys see the questions as well or no? I
No.
think I'm the only one that can see them, right? All right. Let's see. I don't know if I'm missing any. Do, 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 do. No, we answered that one. We answered that
I
one.
guess maybe like when is the right
Good.
time for somebody to join SAG or any of the unions like IATSE? Like when is a good time for somebody to do something like that?
Well, for the crew unions, they're much less strict on taking non-union work, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think there should be much of a holdup on why you wouldn't join a union as a crew member. Aside from, can you afford it? Because I know it's not the cheapest. As far as the actors union, again, I think it's more of a personal thing and where you are in your career right now, and if it makes sense. I know all the SAG actors that I know love being a part of SAG, right? So it's really more of a personal question on where you're at, and I think it might be a better question for someone who actually is a member of the union. And I know Bob is watching, and Bob Dio I know is a SAG actor, so and I know he's more than willing to have conversations with anybody. So if you're an actor, wondering these questions, I would maybe point them in a direction of somebody like that who might be able to give you a little bit more insight than we're able to, unless you guys want to touch on that too.
No, no, not on that one.
Yeah. All right.
We are going to also be doing like a SAG ultra low budget workshop that the Alliance will be hosting. So if you were looking to try to figure out how to hire SAG actors or break into that space and see the value of it, we'll be doing a workshop to teach you actually how to put one together.
Awesome. That's great. Big shout out to Alessandro. Alessandro, why don't you tell people
Yeah.
your social media stuff too, man? You're on here. You set this up.
Uh, so yeah, Don and I are both on the board of the Alliance, Connecticut Film and Television Alliance. I am also on Instagram at Alessandro Sunrise, and this has just been a pleasure to have everybody here being a part of this. This is really fantastic. I think these are the kind of questions we want to have. I'd love to have like a quarterly breakfast with the Film Commission and other different offices that just basically just meet, brainstorm, talk about ideas, share ideas, see what everybody's working on. So we don't. So one hand knows what the other hand's doing. Instead of one hand, just not understanding what everybody's actually doing and functioning. That question you had earlier about, not really knowing exactly how they're promoting the state. I think being aware of that and having those conversations could be very helpful.
Absolutely. All right. And last question before we hop on it, I do see another one here in the Q&A. How does one find avenues to pitch your series, specifically non-scripted series?
I mean, I think there's different ways to do it. Look, most production companies are out there these days are looking for ideas. So, finding a producer that you can pitch to, whether that's myself, whether that's, ITV or one of these other places, I think, that's one avenue. Obviously, the agencies are still very, very involved in things. WME, UTA, CAA, Innovative Gersh, on down the list. They're all out there. Those are also avenues to do it. I think it's you can't go wrong running an idea by somebody. Everybody's looking for ideas in this marketplace. So I would encourage you to reach out to anybody that you know. And look, depend. If it's a studio-based show, ITV is not a bad place to start. If it's a history-based show, I'm not a bad place to start. And there's a million other people in between those two things. So.
Yeah. It's actually like way easier than you think. Trying to pitch whether it gets like move forward with or not. You could just Google some of these executives at these networks and be like, hey, to connect with them on LinkedIn and just email and be like, hey, like I have this original idea. I'd love to chat with you about this. Like I've done that with Miguel from Apple. I've talked to people from Peacock. talk to people from collaboration with Wheelhouse, trying to get some things off the ground. It's actually way easier than you think. All you just got to do is Google and reach out to the head of whoever department or the coordinator right below to whoever department that you may seem fit for your project.
Great advice. All right. So yeah, I think we'll sign off on this. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your days. I know you guys are extremely busy. So I really appreciate it on behalf of the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance and the Connecticut TV Fest. We really appreciate you guys. And I also appreciate every single one of you guys that have been tuning in. And just so we know, Neil just mentioned that there is a union panel from our conference that we had about a year and a half ago on our website, the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance's website, which is CTFTVA.org. And there's a union panel that actually addresses the right time to join SAG. So whoever was asking that question, go to our website and you can watch SAG themselves explain to you when the best time to do that is. Also, Bob put here in a comment that he's willing to have actors reach out to him at bob@castlefiresentertainment.com. So if you're an actor curious about SAG, you can reach out to Bob. And I'm always free to talk, at these events. So please come to this event tomorrow, the Connecticut TV Fest in Norwalk. I hope to see all of our panel members there tomorrow, hopefully. And I hope to see all of you guys who are tuned in right now there tomorrow too, so we can answer any questions that I might not have a chance to answer today. And again, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, everybody.
No
Nice to meet
problem.
Thanks,
everybody. Take
Alexandra.
care.
Take care. Go
Everybody.
Connecticut. Go
Thank you.
Connecticut.
Go
Yes.
Connecticut. Thank you, everybody.
Let's
Thank you so
go.
much.